Thank you so much, Mr. President, and through you to the members. Mr. President, I rise today in support of an amendment I filed to expand equal opportunity in state contracting. Last session, I filed the Mass Makers Act, which is comprehensive legislation designed to provide resources and programs to support local businesses and reduce the administrative red tape faced by small businesses, impeding their growth. I filed unrealized pieces of legislation as a separate amendment to this year's budget. A critical objective of the Mass Makers Act that was realized was the reinstatement of the Supplier Diversity Office as its own agency, with the autonomy necessary to fulfill the Commonwealth's commitment to promoting equitable access to opportunity in public contracting and procurement. I was proud to be a member of this chamber when we also adopted an amendment I filed to hold our purchasing power to the same standard, requiring supplier diversity in Senate contracts. Thank you so much for adopting my amendment on that to our rules. We are opening the right doors, but work still remains. When the doors we are opening are not at ground level, well, we need to provide the elevators. And over the years, various populations have strived to get their feet in the door of business ownership and to achieve financial stability and success. The public faces have changed, but the obstacles remain the same, friends. Massachusetts has adapted to these changes, often leading the way. In 2015, actually, becoming the first state in the nation to issue a policy of including certified LGBT business enterprises as suppliers in public contracting and procurement. Executive Order 565 sparked a wave of LGBTQ plus businesses coming out, as well as the formation of the Massachusetts LGBT Chamber of Commerce. This policy has encouraged LGBTQ plus business owners to come out and obtain certification by the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, the certifying authority relied on by Massachusetts in determining eligible LGBT business enterprises for the purpose of receiving services from the Supplier Diversity Office. However, the National Chamber estimates that there are 1.4 million LGBT-owned small businesses in the U.S. The Small Business Administration estimates that there are 30.7 million small businesses in total in the U.S. Those numbers combined indicate that about 4.6% of small businesses in the U.S. are possibly LGBT-owned. There are more than 30,000 estimated LGBT-owned businesses in New England and approximately 21,000 estimated in Massachusetts alone. Of the nationwide 1.4 million, however, only 1,551 are certified with the National Chamber. Certification with the National Chamber is a requisite to qualifying as an LGBT business enterprise in Massachusetts. The gap in these numbers demonstrates that a policy of inclusion without performance metrics is inefficient. Unlike some other SDO, Supplier Diversity Office service recipient businesses, there are no minimum targets set regarding LGBT business enterprise participation. As a result, it's been difficult for the Supplier Diversity Office to focus on existing LGBT businesses and to obtain a clear understanding of the true pool of LGBT businesses in the Commonwealth that may otherwise be eligible, notwithstanding certification. LGBT businesses have been unable to fully capitalize on services provided by the Supplier Diversity Office or the financial resources and grant programs to which the Supplier Diversity Office serves as a bridge. We must do better by these business owners. Every business that succeeds contributes to the overall health of the Massachusetts economy. This amendment addresses the gap by setting an initial annual participation target by certified LGBT business enterprises of 3% of contracting and procurement dollars and directing the Supplier Diversity Office to set participation goals for LGBT businesses in state contracting and procurement every 2 years. Comparable to the SDO's duties to set participation goals for other diverse business categories already required by law in consultation with appropriate organizations to accurately determine the pool of LGBT businesses available for participation. And friends, for our local economy to thrive, it's not enough that opportunity passively exists. A commitment to diversity requires that the Supplier Diversity Office take active measures to connect those opportunities with able businesses and widen the pool of able businesses by providing services to foster their economic development and growth. The purpose of this amendment is to ensure that LGBT plus businesses will explicitly and actively be actively included in Supplier Diversity Office programs moving forward, helping them grow, in turn, helping our economy grow. This amendment also attempts to reduce some of the administrative red tape hindering those businesses in SDO services. As previously stated, LGBT plus businesses must be certified through the National Chamber. Massachusetts relies on outside organizations for certification of various categories of businesses. Without a direct means of certification, businesses are often subject to multiplication of application efforts and fees. Diverse businesses in particular frequently need to tap into as many available resources as possible, and when businesses qualify as members of multiple categories supported by SDO services, a universal application for direct certification would be more efficient. This amendment provides for streamlining of the certification process to reduce application and fee redundancies and a direct means of certification with the Supplier Diversity Office. And last but not least, this amendment recognizes that the small business landscape in Massachusetts is much more complex than can be reflected by broad designations. Businesses and their owners cannot necessarily be placed in a particular bucket to the exclusion of others. A business owned 17% by a white woman, 17% by a black man, 17% by an LGBTQ individual, and 49% by another man does not qualify as a women business enterprise, a minority business enterprise, or an LGBT business enterprise. Is this business not diverse? Would anyone look at these business owners collaborating and co-investing and say that this business should not qualify to receive services from any agency dedicated to implementing the state's diversity policies? These are questions that we need to be asking ourselves. And this amendment recognizes that these businesses in their totality may still constitute businesses that Supplier Diversity Office is intended to serve by applying substance over form and creating a composite category of existing categories of business owners for the purposes of receiving services from the Supplier Diversity Office and fulfilling the mission of the Commonwealth. Diversity at its best should be about bringing more people to the table and encouraging collaboration among different voices. This is an amendment that I worked on alongside of the LGBT Chamber of Commerce, alongside of Mass Equality. It's a new file. It's a newly filed piece of legislation. So I do want to make sure that it has the opportunity to receive a hearing, Mr. President, but I did want to get up and start the conversation on the need to pass this very important legislation today. I look forward to that public hearing. I hope many of you will show up to that hearing in support of this important piece of legislation.